I'm Carey Stinson, and my journey through life has been quite an adventure. For over 20 years, I played Barney the Dinosaur on tour and 7 seasons of the hugely popular TV show Barney and Friends. Now my journey is to bring together friends and guests from all over the entertainment world for inspiring and at times amusing behind-the-scenes conversation. I'm Carey Stinson, and this is Purple Roads. Welcome to Purple Roads. My name is Carey Stinson, and as always, I'm thrilled you're here. This is going to be such a fun episode. We go all different areas of children's entertainment, and this week we're going to music. This is Jenn Cleary. She's got one amazing album that's already out and a second one that's coming out, and we're so excited to talk about it this week. Jenn, how are you?
I'm great, Carey. Thanks so much for having me.
Thanks for being here. Well, as you can see from her shirt, a
little bit of self-promotion here. I'm so excited. I just got these just today. And so I threw it on. I thought, what a great time. This is the cover of the album, and it's the title track of the album is Happy Day, and it's a happy day to be here with you, Carey.
I love it. We're only happy here on Purple Road, so this is great. And I love the artwork. I love the title, and this is going to be a lot of fun. I want to talk about, we're going to go a little back before we get in, because you've been doing this for a long time, but recently, when did you get into children's entertainment and children's music?
Well, my first album was in 2006, and my first song on that album, I was raising kids at that time, and so I wrote a couple of songs that were pretty playful and fun for the kids. I wrote a song called Little Yellow Sports Car, which was more for adults, but the kids liked that the best on the album. And they would always dance to it, and their friends wanted to hear it in the radio, the car stereo, and all that kind of stuff. So that was a lot of fun. And I wrote a song called Those Boys on my 2010 album. And that one would always just attract the kids. Would always dance at when I was playing at farmers markets and festivals and things like that. And they loved it. The parents loved it. And that became the number one song that people would request at my shows. Play Those Boys. So then when the pandemic came, I just decided, maybe I should write a full-length kids album. Here I am at home, and I have so many ideas that I'd like to kind of flesh out. And so it happened. And now I'm on my second album of kids music. So.
Well, and your first album was critically acclaimed.
It got a lot of awards, which was wonderful. Having had 3 albums before gave me a lot of, practice in the studio and developing my voice and who I was as a person. But I've always had this real playful side and joyful side that I want to share with other people. And it just seemed to hit out there well. So I'm excited to have the second one about to be launched. I have Happy Day, the single came out on this past week. So that's actually out there now, and it's already taken off quite well. So that's exciting.
Well, and I saw it on YouTube.
Yeah.
You've got that, and it's such a cool thing about children's music, because boy, it is the whole thing is just happy and upbeat, and you've involved kids in it. I think it's a lot of fun. It is
a lot of fun. It's self-satisfying in that way, to experience that joy and share that joy.
Well, it's so interesting, because when I got into to Barney, when I got into this, I was a musician, I was an actor, but I wasn't in kids entertainment. We've had so many guests on this show. Almost every one of them didn't plan to get into kids entertainment, and it's their favorite thing. It is such a special place. The audiences are incredible. What has it been like for you? What has the experience been for you?
Yeah, well, it's really transitioning, because coming out with a focused children's album during a pandemic, I haven't been able to play for children. Right. So when I released my first album last year, I released it on my front porch and invited the neighbors. So the kids were all on the front lawn, and I had a bubble machine going, and we, Facebook Live, YouTube Lived it, and that was super special and fun. But I haven't been able to actually go to a venue. I haven't been able to go to a museum or a school or all these things. I did do some kids shows outside last year, a couple of amphitheater shows, folks festival show, some that were outside, but it's always just, not, the kids weren't there in the numbers that they used to be there, even when I was playing for adult music shows. And so it's been hard, but I had this really cool thing happen on Sunday where I was playing at a brewery, because I'm still playing, both shows. I'm doing my acoustic rock and blues shows, and now I'm starting to get more and more into the live kids music shows, which I have planned for the summer. But the brewery was the first one I'd played this spring. And I was planning to play covers and some of my singer-songwriter stuff and weave it in and out. And towards the beginning of the show, this family walked in with a baby and maybe a 4-year-old child. And I started playing, and I was like, oh, this is a great opportunity to play my new songs. I haven't played them live yet, and it's great to figure out, if they're going to react or not. So I started playing Happy Day, and then I played Plant a Garden, which also was released as a single a couple weeks ago. And I went through 5 of my kids' songs, and nobody was complaining. The adults weren't complaining. I'm able to rock them up and kind of make them so that they're not little kiddie songs. They're pretty rocking and fun. And so the mom and the parents were dancing and all that. And I was like, wow, this is great. And then they go and sit down. We do some of other cover tunes, and a 60-year-old guy comes up and says, oh, you're playing our music. I love it. So he didn't even notice that I'm playing the kids' songs, right? And because I wove them in and out. And then these other families started coming and joining that family. And I was like, wow, this is cool. And then the little 4-year-old girl comes up to me and she said, can you play the dinosaur song? And I'm like, I have a dinosaur song. And she says, I know. So they had seen me last summer at a show, and I was talking to the parents after, and they're like, oh, we listen to you every morning on the way to school. We listen to Jenn Cleary. And I'm like, ah. So it meant so much to me that it's working, and that I can play to both audiences, because I'm intending to write in a way that adults can listen as well. It can be fun for all ages, and it can just be stand to a mixed crowd like that. So it's working.
Well, congratulations on that. We've talked about this a lot too. Authenticity is the key. I mean, it really is the key to children's entertainment, because kids can tell. Yeah. And I can tell you're having fun with it already. It's pretty obvious how much you're enjoying that.
Yeah, I really am. Yeah.
What I think is so interesting, and I'm seeing more and more of this, and I kind of loved how you just said about it's not kids music. I think we're seeing kids music, but it's soul and it's folk and it's rock, right. And it's right. So
there's some great stuff
like
out
it could be adults, right? But the lyrics are for the kids.
Yeah.
And the adults don't have any problem with the lyrics being the kids.
Yeah.
Because they're into the music part. And I think that is bringing them all together. As you said, the parents listen to it in the morning.
Yeah.
Back in especially in my early days, Barney, the original Barney music was very kid music.
Yeah.
And it did adjust over time, but originally it was that. And I think parents hear that 1,000 times, and there's a point.
Right. It gets hard to listen to. Yeah.
It does. It does. Yeah. It does. And I'm seeing more of what you're doing, which I just think is brilliant, bringing the two worlds together.
And I didn't know much about children's music up until last year, and I've just gotten on, Spotify or Apple, whatever, and I've just Pandora, and I've just listened to tons and tons of music, and I've networked with other children's artists, and it's just opened up a whole new world for me that I'm just really, really enjoying.
It's been fun. We had Lori Berkner on here, who does a lot of this, and you and I mentioned her.
Absolutely. Wonderful.
Mentioned her, and it's that, and it's really cool with what's going on as well as we're doing here with Zoom. To being able to connect. Lori does a lot of it, did it through the pandemic, and you're doing it. And I just think it's brilliant, finding ways to connect with kids through YouTube and the music and all those things.
Right.
Is it challenging? I mean, there's so many ways to do it now.
Yeah, it has been challenging because I had been performing a lot right up into the pandemic, and last year, or the last couple of years, just shows you'd plan them and they get canceled either from my end or their end, and the kids just weren't out because they didn't know, was it safe or yes or no, and It's been really, really hard to get launched. So I don't even think of myself as a children's artist yet, in a way. I feel like I've laid the groundwork, and I'm really excited for what's going to happen next.
Do we want to call it up and coming?
Up and coming, yeah.
But not an up and coming artist. You've been out doing
Right,
this.
I've been out. That's right. That's right. And there's a lot of other artists, that have done their kids. I mean, I think back to like Kenny Loggins, doing a kids album, way back when, and so many others. Lisa Loeb. Anyway, there's so many. There's so many that they're out rocking it, and then they have kids, and they're like, okay, well, it'd be fun to do a children's album. So I'm in the same kind of category, not as maybe as famous as some of those artists, but doing the same kind of thing.
Yeah, but it's interesting. That doesn't matter as much to kids, obviously.
Right.
Right. It's all about the music, as that little girl said to you. Can I hear the dinosaur song? Right? Because
yeah,
that's what she liked.
I'm like, my dinosaur song. It was my first request, and it was just amazing. Yeah.
Well, there's something special about getting a request from a kid, right?
Yeah.
Right. That they're so, obviously, I saw it a lot. Kids would come up to Barney and you do Raindrops or Mr. Knickerbocker or all those songs. It's the coolest thing, because it means not that it doesn't mean a lot to adults as well, but there's just something about kids wanting to hear their favorite song and they get so excited.
Yeah. It was pretty cool. It was cool talking to the parents too during the break, because they were so excited to be there, and because they were there and they were able to, sit down and have a beer with their friends and have this whole social gathering in this environment that was hip for them, and their kids are dancing. It was just wonderful. Yeah. So
what goes into, we'll talk about the first album.
Sure.
What goes into that? Is it, because the difference, I'm really curious about the difference from writing from adults to kids. Are you looking for just upbeat songs? Are you looking for subject matters? When you write a dinosaur song, there's been other dinosaur songs. So
sure.
Curious where all that goes.
Well, the dinosaur song I actually wrote about 15 years ago when I was camping with my own children, and there was a little boy camped next to us who had this little toy dinosaur that he was playing with in the sand and stuff, and he was all about his dinosaur the whole time, and his dinosaur's name was Charlie, and he had this whole imaginary world with the dinosaur. And so I wrote that back then, but I didn't record it until last year. So that's that one. And so, but more currently, and I had actually half the songs, I would say maybe 4 of the songs I had written over those previous years and just recorded them. And then because I wanted to do more, I decided to collaborate and bring in other people to the idea. So I brought in my daughter, adopted daughter from Nepal, and she was raised by a family. She was a yak herder until age 10 at 14,000 feet in the Himalayas. And she was raised by her aunts and her grandparents and her parents and all this. And so they had to, work from age 4 to survive, basically. As soon as they could walk and do anything, they were working. And so she was raised by different families. And then she walked a month from her village down to Kathmandu, where I was working in a medical tent. And I ended up getting involved because she was dying from a severe scoliosis. And so I ended up trying to get medical help there, couldn't find it. Long story, but ended up being able to bring her here. I started a nonprofit to help children during that time, because I was doing a lot of volunteer work. So she came over. She had lived in the orphanage for a while I was trying to get her out. So she lived there, and then she came here and she lived in our kind of community, like multi-generational family here. And then went to college and worked in a preschool for 8 years with little kids. So she wanted to write a song about families of all kinds. 2 moms, 2 dads, biracial, like you name it, all the things I just talked about. She said, let's talk about that, because these kids all have different situations and they need to know it's okay, And so we wrote this beautiful song together last year that was on the first album called Families of All Kinds. So that was like so meaningful to me. It was her idea. And then there's, I walk every morning a mile with my mother. She lives next door. And she's like, I think you should write a song about caring and loving other people because that's what we're about. And I said, let's do it. So I sat down and wrote it, and we went back and forth. So I wrote that one with my mother. And then I've invited some other friends, and we just got playful and fun and goofy about the whole thing. And so it wasn't a particular topic. This second one I wrote I was down in Key West, and I decided I would write one or two more, just try to get the ball rolling again. And I was there for the week, and I wrote 5 songs in a week on the front porch of this vacation rental, and they just came right out. And so then I came home and I called some friends and said, hey, let's collaborate. I wrote 5 more as collaborations. And what's your idea? So they would bring their idea in. So it's just been a very collaborative, which I think is great for kids' music. It's not in this box. It's like, what's from your childhood, or what makes you laugh, or what makes you happy, or what do you think the kids need to know about that would be fun to kind of educate them about? So that's the background there.
No, I love that. And, it's really interesting because kids are already there, right? I think it's hard for adults to get into that mindset, right? Kids are open, and they go with wherever. If you talk, like, obviously a purple dinosaur became real to them, right?
Yeah.
It's hard for adults to get there, and the kids are like, well, of course it's a purple dinosaur, or whatever it may be. And then I love these messages because, Barney was talking about love a long time ago, which was cool for kids, but adults, it's always been, it's, why are you telling me you love me? What's going on? Where with kids, it's just a normal thing. And I think we're these days getting more comfortable with that. And so I love that those messages are continuing to get out there.
Yeah. Yeah. It is wonderful.
It had to been cool writing a song with your mom.
Yeah, that was special because she's turning 88, and, her life's getting, more and more limited. So it was just a wonderful thing to share with her.
So what are the plans for doing these shows?
What are the plans? I've just, I've got a bunch of summer shows. I'm trying to keep them to outside shows because we just don't know where things are going. And because I am taking care of my mother, I don't want to bring, the virus home here. We've been lucky so far. And I just don't want to push my luck. So I'm kind of limiting the amount of shows I'm doing, and they have to be fresh air. Even the brewery had the garage doors open and lots of fresh air. So that's kind of my, where I'm trying to go with it. But I've got some festivals coming up, and some targeted kids shows, along with some good old breweries and things like that.
Because you're in Colorado.
Yes. Full of breweries.
Well, and you're full of breweries, but also full of outside. I don't think you want to be inside.
Great outside and great music here. There's a lot of great music in this area. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely there is.
Yeah.
So you're mixing it's folk, it's R&B with these songs?
Yeah, it's folk rock,
Okay.
a little bit of blues. I have a bluesy sound on my other albums, so some of them are kind of bluesy. But yeah, they're along that line. So.
Well, and one of the things that I've seen that's really successful when it comes to kids' music is music that kids can interact with. So did you whether it's dancing or hand movements or those things, is that something you put into your music?
I think that's something I actually watched your Lori Berkner podcast, which was fabulous. And I really was listening to that part of your podcast, and anyone who's listening should go back and listen to that one because it was awesome. But I that's something I want to work on more because I'm so used to just having the guitar in my hand and singing and just being kind of this rocking, person with the kids dancing and the families dancing. So that's been my thing. But I do have certain things that I'm starting to work into the show. I have a looper that I can use, so I can put some stuff to repeat, and then I have some things I've been working on at home that I'm going to start to integrate into the shows with snapping and clapping and bouncing and all that kind of thing. So yeah.
That is cool because obviously loopers are something you're seeing more these days, but not something that was around. It gives you a lot of opportunity to do different things.
It does. It's always, loopers are challenging. I can't say I'm like, I don't do 1,000 loops. I usually just do one, and I always do it live. I don't do pre-recorded. But it does allow you to use your hands if you need to, and kind of get out into the crowd. And I have a cordless mic that I can get out into the crowd with, and all that. So that should be a lot of fun.
So as you put this, let's talk about the 5 songs that you did in Key West, which, like, I'm getting this vision of you sitting out.
I was like, that had never happened to me before. I'm like, oh, thank you. You never know when the muse is going to show up. And boy, she showed up that week. So I was like, okay, thank you.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
As you say, it's never happened before, even in your other music.
They've been more over a longer period of time that I've accumulated, but I've never just sat down, and written 5 songs in a week.
Well, I'm curious, is that has something to do with being kids' music? Is it easier to write kids' music, or
it is for me? It is for me. I don't know if it's also because I've now written, I've got 5 albums out,
right?
Or if it's all becoming easier, that might be it as well. But I do find the kids' music, the songs, the singer-songwriter songs, you're trying to write the best love song or the angstiest blues song, and there's so many out there, and whereas the kids, it's like you can pick just these fun topics, like bubbles and dinosaurs and whatever, just these fun topics, and it's just, to me, it's been just flowed really easily. So
now with the song that you did with your adopted daughter, is there a balance to writing something that's, I mean, there's reasonably a serious message to that, but you want to keep it fun too?
Yeah.
Is there a balance to doing that? Do you?
Well, I would say that one isn't as fun. It's more of a, it's one of my slower songs, and it's more trying to connect to the kids on a deeper level.
But do you do it? And I don't mean fun, but you know what I mean. It's got to be challenging. As I'm thinking through this whole thing, it's got to be challenging because you want to get a message across, but you can only go, how deep do you go, and how?
Well, that is a good question. Last year, I did a kids show at an amphitheater, and there was maybe 100 kids and parents there, and I debated on whether or not to do that because my other ones, my Bubbles and all these shows, they bounce and they have a time, and summertime's the time for me, birds singing, honey from the bees, and they're all like, they're moving, right? And so I was really hesitant to do that song, but I'm like, okay, well, I'm gonna do it, and I did it. And it was quieter and they weren't bouncing around, maybe a little bit. And then I was like, oh, maybe I shouldn't have done that. And so, but it was okay. It wasn't like it was bad. At the end of the show, this man comes up to me, and he was sitting on a blanket with a child. And he came up to me, he goes, you don't know how much that meant to us. I'm here with my my foster child, who I have, my child who I haven't seen for years and years. And oh, no. I know it is. He adopted this child. It was them with that family, and they invited the mother to come with them for the first time ever. It gives me chills, right? It was the most beautiful moment. He goes, you sang to us, and that meant so much to our family, and it made the mother feel included to be with her biological daughter. And the daughter to hear that with her mother, it was just like the most magical moment. And then I'm like, stop doubting yourself. These, there's times and places you got to go with your intuition, and it was just amazing. It just gave me chills. I just like cried on the way home. It was just so beautiful. So, does that answer your question?
Boy, that does. It just makes me smile inside and out. I mean, yeah. That's why you get into this. And I always tell people I'm the richest person in this world. And it's because of what these kids and these I've had those experiences, and you don't expect them. And it's incredible. It really is so special. And what's interesting thinking about is you're telling that you don't know, right? When you see a crowd, you don't know what's going on in their life or who's there or what it may be. One of the parts I do know that is challenging is doing slower songs for kids. And we ran into that with Barney, because you do all these upbeat songs, and then whatever the message is, whether it's slow and silly or slow and serious, it's still difficult. So do you really pick your moments where you
I
Well,
usually I start with a set list, but I always give myself permission to move around with the energy of the crowd, with what's happening. Yeah.
which I've got to guess over the years that you've been doing this, you get a good feel for the crowd.
You do for the most part, yeah. But you still never know. Like, I didn't know that until after the show,
Right.
so, and it was magical.
Well, it'll be interesting to see where your career goes, because it seems like you'll be leaning a little bit more to the kids stuff.
Yeah, I think so. Especially since the songwriting is just coming so fluidly so far, that I'm excited to do another one. I mean, we got to get this one out first,
Right.
and see where this goes, and kind of take a breather, and really I want to really establish myself as a kids artist. Now that I've got 20 kids songs plus some of the old ones out there, I feel like I want to just really establish that, and then see how I feel about it. And if it's going well, I would go in that direction again. Or I may go back and do a singer-songwriter album in between. I don't know. People do that as well.
Right.
You just got to see where life takes you.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I never expected to be doing a podcast, and it turned out to be such a fun thing. So yeah, you never know.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about, I've actually never talked about this. What is it like putting an album together? Okay. Especially when you're doing it yourself, websites and social media and album art and all of that. It's got to be exhausting.
It's a lot of work. Yeah, but I also enjoy that. I'm fairly good at organization and putting projects together. I would say I dare say I'm better at that than as a technical musician. I enjoy the whole challenge of building the website and going on social media and learning and doing webinars and classes and meeting people and getting a graphic designer I like to work with, and have a great studio. Cinder Sound Studios is where I've been recording my last 4 albums. Absolutely. John McVeigh is the producer there, and he is just a joy to work with. And having played live for almost 20 years now, I know a lot of musicians, so it's easy to bring them into the studio. Hey, Jen, yeah, I'd love to be in your album. So that's been fun to have that develop over time. But yeah, it's a lot of work. It's a full-time job.
Well, when I looked at it, so you came up in my eyes. I looked at the album immediately and I was like, oh my God. I mean, it looks so professional. I love the artwork. I love the vibe. I love this t-shirt that's great, but it's not that easy, right? Picking colors and things that work right, and the designs and they fit the music and all of that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a challenge, but it's a fun challenge. It's a creative challenge, which makes me happy. So that's good. And Dorje did this artwork on the album.
Love it.
So my daughter.
Really?
Yeah, so she did that. Yeah, and this is also the cover of the CD. So
I love it.
Yeah. So this was really creative work with a graphic designer, but Dorje's artwork she did many years ago, and it's her #1 seller of her artwork that she does when she travels around and does book talks, because she wrote a memoir about her life called Yak Girl, and so she also is an artist, so she brings her paintings, and that one sells, and it's called I Am Happy. So just all these things kind of fell in place to be able to put the artwork together, the graphic design for the album. And the other really cool thing, just to stay with Dorje a little bit longer on this topic, was on this album, I said, what should we write about? And she said, how about a yak? She goes, I love yaks. They're part of their extended family up in the Himalayas. And they live in like prehistoric times. I mean, this is like pretty wild stuff. And so her book is fascinating. But she wanted to honor the yak, the animal, which is also threatened right now by climate change. It's getting warmer up at the high altitudes, and they need to be at high altitude to survive. And so she wanted to honor the yaks. And so we sat down, and she told me all these things from her perspective as a yak herder. Like really, I mean, she would spend all day for years with these yaks, understanding them and knowing them and feeling their energy and all that kind of stuff. So we wrote this song together. Now, writing is hard for her because she didn't have education until she came to America. It was her second language, so she couldn't rhyme. There's limitations for her that I was able to say, okay, well, tell me what you're thinking, and then I would write the verse. So we did this whole song in 8 verses of yak facts, basically. And I said, after we finished it, I said, you know, what style should we make it? She's like, well, let's make it kind of like an old indigenous sound combined with modern fusion. I'm like, okay, well, that should be interesting. So we went and listened to some Tibetan videos of young bands, guys playing these old instruments, but playing them kind of groovy and, bassy and stuff. And I said, it'd be really cool to get your father on it because his father played a lute, a 1-stringed instrument. And so we gave him the idea, and he played the lute. And so I ended up tuning to his lute and also to the rhythm. He set the rhythm. And so we put that into the recording. So I'm playing to him. And then Dorje came into the studio. She had never done music, never been in the studio before and worked on a project like this. So she came in and she had all this opinion on it. And we got the bass to do a certain thing, and we got the drummer to bring a goat head drum that sounded like the drums that they had up in Dolpo, where she's from. And then her father and some of the villagers sang an old indigenous song about kind of calling the yaks in, or about nature and respecting nature, and we wove that in and out of the song. And it was just, and Dorje at the beginning, I said, Dorje, you got to sing on this. She goes, oh, no, I'm not singing. I don't sing. I said, will you whistle? So she does some of her yak whistles, how she used to call the yaks in. At the beginning, you can hear her whistling. And I said, well, did you say anything to them? She goes, yeah, we go, coo, 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 coo. So that's on the album at the beginning. If you listen carefully, the wind's blowing, and then you hear Dorje whistling and cooing. And then you've got some flute coming in, and then, I start talking about I'm a yak, I'm big and strong with thick woolly coat to keep me warm. So I start singing, and then all this other stuff goes in and out, and it builds and builds, and it's got this modern groove to it. So to me, it was like the most amazing project to work on together.
How long did that take you?
Probably we did the album over about 4 months of recording. Yeah.
Well, that's just also, that's one of the coolest things about, you can do a song like that to kids, that they're going to love that. And they're going to love all the cooing and all the different instruments.
It's very different than, is it a world music song? Is it an indigenous song? Is it a kid's? It's got yak facts in it, so it speaks to the children. But as an adult, you'll learn, like, I didn't know that about a yak. And then hopefully people enjoy the groove too, whether you're young or old. And so it's not like I have another song, like it's not like the dinosaur song, Oh, my best friend's name is Charlie. He comes over every day. That's more of a little kid's dinosaur song,
Right.
It's a Barney song.
It is.
Whereas this one, it was very, very, it was a production, it was a studio production.
But you can do that with kids. That's what's so great about it. You can just go anywhere you want to go with this.
Yeah.
And I think, as you say, for an adult, they'll be like, wow, I didn't know all those things about a yak.
Yeah.
And you telling this story, what I think is so cool about kids' music, it's very visual. Like as you're telling this story, and I can imagine listening to this song, I'm looking up there, right? I can see.
It's very visual. Yeah.
I can see her. And then as you tell that, when you sing a little bit, I'm like, oh, I'm picturing the yak.
Yeah.
Which I think is cool. Do you think about that with the other songs that you write, is the visual aspect?
Absolutely. Yeah. Visualization is really important. I've been going for the last almost 20 years to the song school in Lyons, Colorado at Planet Bluegrass. And that's really what helped launch me. I never thought of myself as a musician. I was just like wanted to sit around the campfire and play with my friends kind of thing. But I started to go to the song school, and you just start to learn all these things, like, make pictures, don't just say words, but make pictures so it is visual. And that's a huge thing that I picked up from going there. So.
Well, because it's interesting thinking about Happy Day on your shirt, like just hearing a second of it, that whole vibe is there.
Yeah.
Which I think which brings that.
Yeah.
which I love about kids' music. All of a sudden, I'm, 3 seconds in, I'm smiling, and then not know, I have no idea what's coming next. And then the kids get in, and then this and this and that. I think that is such a fun part about this.
Yeah.
So the album gets launched, and then how do you get it out there more? Are you doing videos? I know you've talked
Yeah, well,
about
as you see, we just put together just a basic Happy Day video with some snapshots from the making of the album. So we'll start to do some videos. This summer will be about performing and really getting out there. So I think that, if I'm going to come back to videos, it's probably going to be after. There's so many directions I can go with all this, with time and energy. But I think that's where it's going to be, is I'm just going to see how it feels to perform these songs and try to improve my own, like you said, get some more movement that you needed to do, and how to engage the kids to keep them engaged for 45 minutes or an hour. It's not easy, right? So
no, it's not. I came into Barney about 3 years after a lot of those songs, the initial ones, were written and the movements were. And when I first went out and did these appearances, it was just unbelievable. I was like, oh my gosh, the hand movements and things of that nature.
Yeah.
It's really something special.
Yeah. Yeah.
When it came, let's talk about how you got into music. To start off, was this as a kid? Were you started playing instruments first, or were you singing, or where did this come from?
Well, I've always loved music as a kid, but more singing along to top 40 radio. Then started the guitar when I was in middle school. Never thought I'd be a musician. I moved out to Boulder, Colorado from Boston, and was playing more and more and getting kind of good at it. So I actually started teaching guitar as part of my income, and came out here with no money. And I started busking on the Pearl Street Mall, and just, this is at age 23 or so. But again, not thinking I was anything, I would ever go professional. So that happened. And then I got into I need money. So I started making money. I was a builder, and I would build houses and remodels. And so I was able to make some money so that I could do the music, because it's so hard to make any money in music, right, especially children's music. And then started having kids of my own. And then I went to the song school that I was telling you about, which changed my life. And I also did a rock band class, and I was like, man, this is fun. I want to perform. This is me, I want to get on stage and hold the mic and have a good time and see people moving and dancing and collaborate with these other musicians. So it just took off there, really my beginning 30s, really. And then went to the song school and learned more and more, and started to develop these albums, and more in the singer-songwriter style. And then I had a health crisis where I was losing my vision. And I still struggle with some kind of autoimmune thing, maybe Lyme disease. They don't really know what's going on, but I have physical pain and fatigue and various ailments that come and go for me that I have to manage. So at that time, I started to go really deep into more of a soulful music. And it went from just kind of simple, idealistic kind of songs to bluesy. I meant it. When I was singing it, I was screaming the blues. And because I was afraid I was going to go blind, and I didn't know how long I was going to live. And, I'd always been athletic and strong, and now I wasn't anymore. So it really deepened my soul and my expression. And that's when people started listening to my music, because everyone's in pain, right? Everyone's got some kind of pain, whether it's physical or psychological or emotional. We all have that. And that just felt like a way to connect with people on a really deeper level. That's what I really did for those years, is really go into those deeper songs. I sang a lot in terms of the cover songs. I was singing like Janis Joplin and Bonnie Raitt, but the angsty, kind of stuff. But then I also didn't want to just stay there either, and that's where I think the children's music is like, wait a minute, you don't need to be singing the blues all the time. You can have that woven in your music as it applies, but it doesn't have to be you. So that's kind of the history behind it.
It's fascinating. I love hearing how people get down this journey and this path, and it's really interesting where you've gotten. It's interesting. I went to music school, was going to be a piano player, and and then I stumbled into a big purple dinosaur. But you never know where life's going to take
you. Never know. No.
You never know. But I remember taking music business class, and right off the bat, it's that fine line of covers, original music, because who are you? It's hard to make it just off of original music, but otherwise you're stuck in a cover band. How have you found that way to move from that, from doing covers to doing original stuff, and even now the kids stuff? I mean, is there a concern of, well, now I'm just,
there always is, because I want it.
I'm an adult artist.
There always is, because obviously you're there to entertain the audience and try to connect with them. And it was really hard at first because my song selection was so small. And now I have a much, much bigger pool to pull from. So that's part of it. And what I would do a lot of time, what I still do a lot of times, is I have all these covers I can pull out, but I have a lot of my own songs. And so I weave them in and out. And a lot of people will come up and say, who did that one? And because I'm using, because that's my influence, I have some of that, a lot of 60s, 70s kind of music. I have that in my own songs. And so they do, I find, weave in and out pretty well, where people don't know if it was a famous song or who did that. It's not like it comes out of nowhere and it's like, ugh, turn that off. So it's worked. Even the dinosaur song that I played on Sunday, I couldn't believe it, but I saw the adults were dancing, because I played it in kind of a, oh, my best friends, I just played it in a bluesier, a different way than I might, that sounds like on the album, for example, so that everyone could enjoy it. So I changed kind of the vibe of the way I do it.
Well, I want to talk about that, because I think that's really interesting. Changing the music a little bit. Obviously, we did it with some of our songs. You change arrangements, right? The lyrics are the same, and the thing of that. Is that something I think that's really fascinating. Is it based on the crowd?
Yeah, it's based on the crowd. And sometimes I don't know where it comes from, but new words come through me sometimes that, like I'll just say something to someone in the crowd that, with this blue shirt on or whatever, like if you're sitting there with the blue shirt on and whatever, I'm able to do that a little bit, where people crack up and you make it personal and change the words to what's happening currently.
Now, were you able to do that? Is that because that's obviously a skill? Is that something that's built up over?
It's built up. Yeah, you get more and more confident to just let yourself go and see what comes out of your mouth, and hope it goes well. I haven't done too badly so far. I mean, sometimes I'm more clever than other times, but.
Yeah. I'm curious, because I'm kind of getting this vibe. How much do you, when it comes to your shows and the music you write, come from feedback that you get from watching your crowds and hearing from? It's obvious that people like to tell you stories. Mm-hmm. How much does that go into what you do in the future?
Well, definitely influences it. I mean, particularly now with the kids' music, I'm really observing, to see what's going to work and what's missing from my show and what's going to keep the kids engaged. Again, with your Lori Berkner interview, I thought it was interesting how she said something like she went to somewhere and some kid said something, and it's like, that's what I'm going to put in my next song. I don't know if she went to a park or a party, I don't know, whatever it was. And I was like, yeah, because I've done that with my adult music all along too. You're always listening to see what people say, and then you're like, oh, okay, well, I might use that line to get me going on another song, And part of the song school that I've gone to for years, I'm a teacher at it now, which is wonderful.
That's cool to go from a student to a teacher.
Yeah. So that's been awesome, really incredible. But Peter Yarrow came a few years ago, from Peter, Paul, and Mary.
Yes.
And it was like he's getting quite old now, and it just felt like one of the last things he's doing now is he came and he spoke to us as songwriters, and he said, you are the messengers. You are the people who are going to connect with the people. You're speaking what's happening in the time, and you can make a change and you can make a difference. And I was so moved by that. It was like he was handing the torch to us younger people who are out there doing it now as he retires. And so it's the same with adult music as it is with kids' music. What do kids need to hear? Again, going back to Lori Berkner, the Mass song that she did. Like, right, you're trying to make it okay for these kids in this really difficult time with what they're going through, to make it okay. It's your superpower. So what is there to say in this time? And Families of All Kinds that I wrote last year, that was a strong song for that family, and I hope it is for other families as well. So you do learn and say, okay, that it is okay to write about that kind of thing. And then other times you're writing about a dinosaur or bubbles or some candy or whatever. So.
Do you some of it is the time, some of it is a bigger message, which I think is interesting. Do you try on an album, I'm going to do some songs that are just fun, I'm going to do some songs that have a message, I'm going to do some song, is there any thought that goes into that? Or just when you're collaborating, there's no...
Well, when I first sat on the porch in Key West, someone had said to me, everyone needs a Happy Day song. And I literally went out to the porch right then and wrote that song. I mean, that's just where that came from, because I just heard someone say, everyone needs a Happy Day song. I'm like, oh, right, first song. Went out to the porch, it came right out of me. It was so easy, you know. And then other things, like I was at the beach, so I wrote a song about a seagull and how wonderful it is to fly. So that was all about appreciating, having a conversation with a seagull, and then saying, "Come on, fly! I want to see you fly." And because he was trying to get food from me, it was actually happening, right? So that was really. Tell me what your question was. I started to go in a different direction. You started to say.
I don't know. You took me on the.
I took you on it.
My question basically is there a I don't want to call it a theme, but is there, you know, I'm going to have so many just fun songs, and I'm going to have a couple silly songs, and I'm going to have a serious song. I'm going to have one slow song.
Yeah, I want it mixed.
Does it come off of, you know, when you're collaborating, when you're doing your stuff, it just really is the song, and that's what's going to, the idea and the vibe is really going to be where the album is. I'm just curious, when you're constructing an album, is it, you know, I'm going to keep it this theme, or is it really just about the songs that actually dictate the album?
The last album from last year was definitely like I'd written 4 or 5 of the songs over several years. So it was just what they were. And then when I went to finish the other 5 or 6 songs, I was like, okay, how am I going to balance this out? Well, I really need a silly song, you know, and I really need this, and so that's how that happened. And then this time I really, I sat on that porch and I wrote these 5 songs kind of based on what I had learned. And then the final 5 songs for the collaborations, I told my collaborators, look, this is what I want. I'm looking for something along these lines. For example, this friend of mine who was my roommate after college, just a goofball. We used to sit around and make up songs, and he's not a musician, but he was spontaneous and goofy and fun. I said, we need to write a song together. So I called him down in Texas. I said, hey, let's do this. He said, okay. He said, what should we write about? I said, well, here's my list of ideas. And he liked the one about snack time. So I said, okay, snack time. I said, well, why don't you write the lyrics, get the lyrics started. I want it to have a positive message. I want it to be fun, and I want it to speak to both adults and kids. So he came back with 8 verses or whatever, but he had never written a song before. So, but he really nailed what I asked. So then I took it, and it was a song called "I Like Candy." And it's all about how I like, you know, let's see, I like candy, I like chocolate, that's what I desire. Bubble gum and hot fudge sundaes is all that I require. So it's all about loving candy, and it's super goofy and fun. But then the chorus goes into, eat your broccoli, eat your peas, those carrots make you strong. This is what our parents tell us, but I think they have it wrong. So then it goes into gummy bears and taffy, a donut and some cake. So the kids are like, woohoo, you know, they're as high as can be on their candy. And then the parents come in, and, you know, and it goes off. And then the bridge says, oh, the other day I had a toothache. It almost made me weep. The dentist says it's from the sugar. Cut down, brush your teeth. Well, I think I learned a lesson here. Those carrots make you strong. This is what our parents tell us, and I guess they're not so wrong. So, I took his words and I just made it into the song that rhymed and was appropriate for kids, because he's from Germany, and some of his candy was like, no one's going to know what that candy is. Or, he said gobsmackers, from,
Willy Wonka, right?
The Charlie, Willy Wonka. And I was like, that doesn't rhyme with anything, and it's a little hard to sing. And so, I just swapped out words and made things rhyme and said, okay, this is the chorus and here's a bridge. And so we worked together like that. But that's kind of my criteria, if that answers your question. I want to have some of them to be just playful. My song about bubbles is just super playful. And other ones I want to kind of get in, it's great to eat candy, but you also got to brush your teeth and eat your veggies, so I did that for both the kids and the parents, so that's the goal.
No, that exactly answered my question. That's fascinating. I'm also curious. So you're writing this album. Is there some stuff, do you kind of start thinking in the future a little bit? On the next album, I'm going to do this and this? Is there any?
I'm looking to see what's missing at my live shows. Okay. That's what I'm waiting for next. Is I want to get out there and do my live shows this summer and see what's missing that would really get the crowd, keep the crowd engaged, instead of just standing up there and playing these songs where the kids are bouncing around or playing with my bubble machine. Do I have more like clap your hands and snap your fingers and. Right. Happy Day does start out with some movements. It's a happy day. I dance step to the right. I jump up to take flight. Things like that. So I can definitely incorporate more of that in. But I want to figure out where the holes are to really get my live show solid.
Well, I think the fun part will be, and I learned this. You don't really know which are going to be the songs you're going to react to. It's always fascinating. With Barney's songs, even some of the adults now say, oh, this was my favorite. And it's not always the one you think it is. A lot of times there's, obviously I Love You, and those are very popular for Barney, but there's other ones that are like, oh my gosh, this was my favorite song that was kind of hidden. Is that something you're already seeing a little bit? And obviously you'll learn more as you go out. Songs that you didn't maybe expect were going to be really popular that they love.
I never thought I thought the dinosaur song was my, just sticking it in there, and to have it requested at a show was hilarious to me. So you never know. I mean, I thought on my last album, I wrote a song. I'm a beekeeper, and so I wrote a song about bees because I was invited to do a educational show in Ogden, Utah, at the Ogden Nature Center. And so I wrote all about kind of like the Yak song, where it's lots of facts, but this one's really playful. And when we went into the studio, we just had a blast making all these different sounds. And I think it's one of the most entertaining songs on that whole album. But it never got into took off in terms of, the streaming. But right now here it is a year later, and I'm seeing it show up on playlists everywhere. So I thought, oh God, I thought that was like one of my best songs. And it's a song that people request, because the chorus says "My Sisters and Me," which people also interpret as kind of a female anthem in a way, which people like, "My sisters and me," and people love singing that line. So it's a great live show performance that people really like. But it kind of flopped in the streaming world, but now it's starting to creep up. I'm like, okay, well, it just hasn't gotten out there yet. So who knows?
Well, it has just been a blast talking to you. I'm so excited for what you've got going on and to see where this goes.
Thank you, Carey. It's been fun to talk to you as well.
You've kind of teased, I do this a lot, and I'm going to put you on the spot, but can you sing a little bit for us?
What do you want to hear?
You get to pick.
Well, this is the first song on the last album, which is called Our Wild Family. Animals, birds, and trees are related to you and me. We all need the wild places, waterfalls, rocks, and bees to make us happy. icebergs for big polar bears. We need to fix our atmosphere, keep poisons from our soil, live in harmony with Earth everywhere. Animals, birds, and trees are related to you and me. We all need the wild places, waterfalls, rocks, and leaves that make us happy. Feel free. Let's take care of our family. Yeah! Oh yeah, rocking it now. So make friends with Sister Squirrel. Go hug your favorite tree. Kiss a butterfly's nose if you dare. Lie down on soft green grass, feel cool wind on your cheek. Let your mind wander skies so fair. Don't use more than you need. Let the wild places be. And remember, Earth is precious and is rare. Everybody, come on, Carey! And birds and trees are related to you and me. We all need the wild places, waterfalls, rocks, and bees to make us happy. Feel free. Let's take care of our family.
Yeah, how could you not smile from something of that nature? Goodness gracious, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
All right, we gotta finish up with how can they find the new album?
JennCleary.com has all the information, but it's going to be on all the streaming services, you know, Pandora and YouTube and Spotify and Apple, all those. So yeah.
And that will be the same for your performances. They can find tour dates.
Yep, tour dates are there. CDs are for sale on my website, or live shows and all that. So.
And then
yeah,
you've got
T-shirts. I got new T-shirts. These are super fun. So go to my website. And yeah,
get some music, get the T-shirt, and also you've got YouTube as well, which you're doing. Yeah, doing more of your performances, music.
My intention is to build that up more and more as time goes by as well. So subscribe on YouTube and see what comes out of me next.
Well, we look forward to seeing that. We'll have to bring you back and we'll talk about what is next when it comes out. And
I'm going to follow your show as well now that we've connected. This has been wonderful, Carey, and I wish you the best of luck with what you're doing, and thank you so much for bringing in all these different guests. It's a wonderful thing you're doing. Well, thank you so much, and thanks for being part of it. You've added so much to it, and I've enjoyed it. And as you can see, this is not a fake smile. I can't help smiling hearing these stories and hearing this music. Yeah. Thank you so much. And thank you for watching Purple Roads. Remember to keep your eyes, ears, and heart open, and you'll find your purple road. We'll see you next week.